Welcome, everyone, to this online program called Secret Scientific Discoveries That Are Changing Everything. And as you can see, I'm here with Gregg Braden, the esteemed scientist and leader, and great to be with you, Gregg. I'm Steve Farrell.
Steve, it's a pleasure to be with you. And I'll tell you what, the new science is changing everything. It's changing more than everything. And that's why we're so excited to share this information. I am taking this opportunity to share new discoveries that are overturning 150 years of biological thinking, 300 years of science when it comes to physics and math. And it's all about you and me. It's about our relationship to ourselves, to one another, to the earth, to the cosmos, to the future, to the past. And that's what this information is all about. And I think we're going to flesh this out a little bit today.
Yeah, we sure are. Boy, I'm so happy to be here with you. And we are getting to jaw-dropping science, truthfully, that is changing everything. So I'm glad you're tuned in, because whether we like it or not, this change is happening. So we want to embrace it and not be one of these laggards that's dragged by it. So let's jump right in here, Gregg.
I'm going to follow your lead. This is a dance. I'm going to follow your lead in this dance.
Okay, fantastic. So now you and Nassim Harriman have completed research from Mesoamerica that uncovered evidence of advanced civilizations that visited the Earth. Can you share about your discoveries and the implications when you consider our own human evolution and our daily lives? And I'm sorry, that's kind of a lengthy question, but I'll even
Just
throw in
three questions in that question.
Yeah, and here I've got to throw in a fourth. What the heck am I doing anyway, Steve? Is you were sharing with me something I didn't know, which was that when we talk about extraterrestrials, there could be another dimension to that. So, which is fascinating, really.
Yeah. So let me begin at the beginning. Nassim and I are working together. What many people don't know is that we have worked together, and when this recording is being made, it is the summer of 2021. It happens to be our 30-year anniversary of the day that we met and began working together. 30 years. We met in a little town in northern New Mexico, and began working to unlock some of the deepest mysteries of our existence, pretty much for the same reasons, because we both recognize that we're living this rare and precious moment in the history of civilization and the history of our time when new ideas are now being accepted more readily than they have been in the past, because the world is changing and the old ways of thinking are breaking down. They're not solving the problems for us. So when it comes to our common themes, Nassim and I are both scientists. We are looking at current science, but we tend to see a continuity in terms of civilization and humankind. And that involves the archaeological discoveries that help us to recognize that continuity. So through the Mesoamerican sites that we've had the opportunity to work with, there have recently been a series of new discoveries that have been surfaced. Over 4,000 archaeological relics. So they are separate from one another, but they are all depicting common themes. And those common themes are a relationship between the people of the earth and the people of the stars in many, many different levels. Accompanying these depictions is a script. I'm not going to say an alphabet, because we believe it is not an alphabet. It is a script that has never been seen before, that predates even the earliest writing known to humankind. And we're also actively working to unlock the secrets of this script so that we are very clear about what is being depicted on the artifacts themselves. What we are seeing clearly are replicas of our solar system in such precise detail. The planets are accurate in terms of their size related to one another, in terms of their orbits, the size of their orbits, the distance between the planets. Rings on Neptune and Jupiter, which we did not even know about until the 20th century. The asteroid belt is certainly depicted in these, and some of the artifacts depict our solar system not from the sun out, but from the cosmos moving in, as if you were coming in from outbound, inbound. So when you look at these unto themselves, of course, they are subject to interpretation, but when you put them into context with evidence that we now have the biological evidence of an intervention when it comes to human genome. What scientists are telling us very clearly is that we are the product of genetic mutations that happen quickly. They happened very close to the same time that we emerged, 200,000 years before present. Scientists agree on that date. Human chromosome number 2, for example, that is responsible for a brain size 50% larger from our nearest primate. The uniquely human abilities of empathy and sympathy and compassion and the ability to self-regulate our biology all come from human chromosome number 2. Who or whatever is responsible for that, it is not the product of natural evolutionary processes. And the proceedings from National Academy of Sciences have said that very, very clearly. We don't know what it is from. We know it's not the product of a natural evolutionary process. And if that were the only mutation, we could say maybe it was a rare anomaly, but there are other genes that have equally mysterious mutations. They all occurred 200,000 years ago. These artifacts are depicting birthing scenes between humans and beings from somewhere, and not of Earth. But what Steve now is referring to is there is a new body of evidence suggesting that some of these, at least some of them, when we think of extraterrestrial, we think of other worlds. What the artifacts are depicting and what some of the other studies now have indicated is that the beings are not from another world, but they're from our world in another time, in our future. And that they have made contact with people of the Earth at this time because we are in a very, very crucial time in our evolution where we're making the choices in terms of technology and how we embrace that technology and how much of that technology we embrace into our bodies or even to replace our bodies, the merging of artificial intelligence and biology. And what they're saying is that they made those choices and they resulted in unsuspected and in some cases unknown results where they lost some of the capabilities that we still have, and they are us inviting us not to make those choices again. That's a huge concept. It's a mouthful, and I wanted to answer your question. So the archaeological evidence is one piece. It's a facet that supports the cultural evidence almost universally. The indigenous traditions tell us. Not one indigenous tradition tells us that we're the product of a random mutation. They all tell us that we're the product of some kind of an intervention. Now, I'm a scientist, and as a scientist, I cannot tell you precisely what that intervention is. As a scientist, I can tell you the evidence strongly supports some kind of an intervention rather than a random process that scientists call lucky biology. So we have the cultural evidence, now we have the genetic evidence. And Steve, this is so amazing. We now have the technology. We can extract DNA from the fossilized remains of ancient forms of life that we used to believe we have descended from, compare their genome to our genome, and that evidence, that is rock solid science, and it's telling us we did not descend from Australopithecus. We didn't descend from Neanderthal. We have shared DNA, which means we may have a common ancestor, but we didn't descend from them. In many cases, we shared the earth with them. So the bottom line is the archaeology is supporting the new discoveries that are revealing a new human story. And that's really what Nassim and I are working on. It's the science that is helping us to come to terms with the potential within each of us to navigate the changes in our lives and our world in a healthy way. And what the science is revealing is that we're not what we've been told, and we're much more than we've ever imagined. So that's where we're going with this.
Yeah, boy, and no kidding. I mean, talking with the specifics of what you just shared, holy cow. So Carl Sagan said we're made of stardust, and that kind of is maybe one dimension of it. But then the science fiction, I'll almost call it, because we've seen movies like this,
Sure.
Something in our, this is certainly talking to our limitless nature, because if it's our future self coming back, that has all kinds of implications.
Steve, there's an emerging philosophy in the scientific community. Let me just share this philosophy, and then I'll unpack it briefly, is that consciousness informs itself through its creations. So the things that the books that we write, the poetry, the sculpture, the art, the music, that we think are diversions, they may be, but they're also telling us something about ourselves. This principle goes to the movies that we create. And you look at the movies that have been blockbuster hits recently. I'm not saying every detail is perfect, but in general, what are the themes? You know, The Matrix told us that we're part of a world that we can't see, that influences a world we can see, and now we know that that's true. Inception told us about the ability to dream within dreams and lucid conscious dreaming. Business deals were done in the dreams. Avatar told us about our relationship to the natural world. And many of these now are telling us that we, especially young people, are really drawn Wonder Woman and the Avengers and, you know, all these movies about superpowers because they speak to us. And they say, maybe there's something within us that's untapped, that's unrealized. And maybe it is that something for the first time that helps us to know what it means to be human and to express our deepest humanness fully, precisely now at the time when we need that humanness to navigate the waters, the uncharted waters of this tremendous shift that we see ourselves going through socially, politically, economically, technologically, of course.
Wow. So now Nassim Harriman, who's partnered with us on this program, he's brought in this notion of a resonant field, and you together have stated, well, the resonant field is in you. Now, what does that mean, Gregg, and how do you access it?
You know, I'm going to begin that. I'm going to answer that with a quick story. In 2008, I published a book. It took me almost 20 years to write this book. It was called The Divine Matrix. It was a very healing book for me to write, Steve, because it was an opportunity for me to put in concisely into a book what so many people had asked me about all those years. Are we connected, or are we separate from one another? Are we connected to the earth? Are we separate? Is there a field that underlies all existence? Well, that book in 2008 was considered fringe, and it is today required reading at university, some university course. There's a university course called Science and Society, or Physics and Society, and they use this as the foundation. We've come so far in this brief period of time. Scientists now know there is, in fact, a field. But this is where it gets really interesting. And even today, Steve, I go to science conferences and hear these very well-known scientists, and they're on the stage. There is a field out there that connects all things, and their hands are doing this because they're still separating themselves from the field. And here's what Nassim meant, and it was the reason that we have done so much work together. Scientists tell us we have about perhaps 50 trillion cells in the average human body, give or take. And with every one of those 50 trillion cells, there's 100 trillion atoms at least. And this is where the field comes in, because every one of those atoms is emerging from that field and collapsing into the field in a constant dance. This is you and I recreating ourselves from the field. The field's not out there. We are the field. We are disturbances. It's not very romantic to say that, but we're wrinkles. Our consciousness creates this wrinkle in the field that's Gregg for whatever period of time I'm here. And I am holding that form in the field. I am the field. You are the field. And this is where the physics is so interesting, because when we understand the principles of that field, what we're really understanding is the rules and the guidelines of our lives and our potential and our capabilities. So what are those? Well, we know, number one, that the field is entangled. We know that all matter in the universe was once connected. And even though physically the universe is expanding and separating, energetically we're still connected, number one. Number two, the universe is holographic. This is such a powerful, I can't even do justice to it in this brief conversation, but what it means is in a true hologram, every piece of the hologram has information about the rest of the structure. So I talk about this often in workshops. Remember 1980s? The New Age began, and there were these shiny little bookmarks, holographic bookmarks of like the Great Pyramid or dolphins jumping over roses or something. And if it was a true holographic bookmark, you could cut that into a million pieces and take the smallest and look at it under a microscope, and you would see the whole image, because every piece has information about that whole. So you and I reflect that. Here's how you know that. If there is a change in the DNA in your body, if you take an antibiotic, take a shot for an antibiotic, if your body had to absorb that antibiotic one cell at a time for 50 trillion cells, and it took 1 second right there. So 50 trillion seconds, it would take forever for you to do that. But it doesn't, because your body is holographic. The other principle is that we are fractal. So fractal patterns, there are small patterns that repeat the same pattern on larger and larger and larger scales. So an atom are things moving around the nucleus that are very similar to planets moving around the sun. They're very similar to a solar system moving around the galaxy, same pattern but different scale. When we begin to understand how these principles work, they are informing us of our potential in life. And this is one of the places where my work with Nassim has really overlapped, and we've arrived at some very empowering techniques, very empowering understandings of who we are in our relationship to the world.
Wow. Yeah. Well, we later in this program, we'll talk about how people can access it and what we're doing with Nassim. Look forward to that. But let me jump to you. You shared that this is such a pivotal moment in history. So what are we pivoting toward, and how do we participate in that?
This goes to stepping back from the minutia of what's happening every day and looking at the big picture. I'm a systems thinker. I'm a geologist by degree. And geologists typically tend to look at large expanses of time. And what we know is that we today, our civilization, our planet, is living a rare convergence of cycles, natural rhythms that repeat predictably. And you can calculate when they're going to repeat. But there's such large expanses of time, people typically don't think about that. So climate change is a beautiful example. We are certainly contributing to climate change, no doubt. We're not causing it. If we weren't here, the geology tells us we would still be going through climate change. That's enough to change the way we think and live our lives, but it's not enough to explain all of the cycles. We're going through a huge shift in economy, in the global economy. And when people hear about economy, Steve, they often think about money. I've been with indigenous cultures where there is no money, but they have very healthy economies. Economies are about people and relationships and sharing the vital resources of food and energy and water, medicine, communication that we need every day of our lives. We're undergoing a global shift of an economy. We're trying to make it fit into a pre-existing idea of money that is broken. It's no longer working. We're also going through a cycle of human conflict. And when I spoke with the UN about this, they were surprised. They said, what do you mean a cycle? Doesn't it just happen spontaneously? And the answer is it may, but typically human conflict follows solar cycles that influence magnetic fields of the planet. The bottom line is when the magnetic fields are strong, we are less aggressive. We are more willing to cooperate. Just the opposite when they're weak, and we are at the weakest magnetic field. We're in between solar cycles right now. It's called a solar minimum. And we are vulnerable to conflict. And you put those together, conflict and economy, and climate change. And then on top of that, the technology that's being developed. And in many cases, Steve, what's happened is that the science and the technology have outpaced the morality. And what I mean by that, let me be very clear. The technology is not good, bad, or right or wrong. It's how it's applied. So we develop the technology, for example, to edit the DNA inside of the embryo, a fetus of a living human child in the womb of the mother. We can do that now. That could have wonderful implications for birth defects and things like that. The question is, how do you use that? And there are some scientists that believe we should use that technology to perfect every living birth. The question is, whose idea of perfection? Is it about a certain eye color, a certain hair color, fast twitch muscles for athletic performance, or brain cells for IQ? What is perfection? And the truth is that our diversity is our strength. And my personal opinion is there's some things that we don't want to mess with, and that's one of them. So the technology isn't good, bad, right, or wrong. We must determine, we must choose as a civilization the values that we cherish and make those values the foundation for all the policies when it comes to these new technologies. And I got to tell you, artificial intelligence and the ability to interconnect and all the surveillance and all of the things that are communications. The technology is there. It's going to happen. And we now have to, as a society, we must choose what do we value? What's important to us? And rather than giving those values away to economic interests, make those values the foundation, put the economic interest on the back seat. A lot of people don't like that. But what they don't know is we're wealthier as a society when we honor our values, because it becomes possible. And this is what the information the seminar are working with, to free humankind from the shackles of the fear that have kept us so separate and promoted war. Since the beginning of human writing, we've had war and conflict. I believe that we're about to outgrow the use of war to solve our problems. War is about to become obsolete in our lifetime, and that's what makes this so exciting. We promote these new discoveries that reveal the deep truth of who we are and our potential and our capabilities. It does change everything, Steve. It rewrites the way that we've been taught to deal with our problems, and it opens the door for a generation, of a deep generation of caring and cooperation, where we raise the standard of living for everyone, and we do it in a green, sustainable economic way, rather than having a few that enjoy that at the expense of the many. That's where we are right now. This is what makes this time such a rare and precious moment in the history of our civilization.
No
That's
kidding.
a long answer to a short question.
No, that was fantastic. A lot to unpack there. So this research then that you and Nassim are doing, there's so many important implications to this research. But why are scientists and the media not shouting from rooftops about
I can answer it
this research?
I can answer that in 4 words, and then if you want me to flesh it, I will. I will say money, habit, ego. Money, habit, ego are primarily those 3. And the last one is about power. Money, habit, ego, and power. What we know, many of the discoveries we're talking about, the deep scientific community is aware of some of these. Some they're not. But they are beholden to academic institutions or corporations who rely upon funding only if they will support a certain narrative or certain story. So I'll say it this way. There's a battle playing out right now in front of us, a battle for our story. Who we are, what are our origins, what is our potential, and what are our capabilities. The old idea is that we are the product of a dead, inert universe that is the product of what has been called lucky physics. And the cosmology that we've been taught reflects that. And that you and I are the product of random mutations in what has been called lucky biology, and our biology reflects that. And that's an old way, Darwinian biology, that's an old way of thinking. The problem is the evidence no longer supports that story. And when the evidence no longer supports a story, it's time for a new story. So the good news, and this is really good news, is the new physics and the new biology. They tell us that we are the product, first of all, the universe is alive, it is conscious. It actually acts, the cosmos acts like a living being. When something happens on one side of the universe, the other side compensates and responds as a living force. And there are scientists that now suspect that consciousness permeates throughout the physical universe and the non-physical universe. So if we are the product of a universe that is alive and conscious, we would expect life itself to be more common. And we're the product of that. And what the new science, the genetics, the new biology is showing is that you and I'm not denying evolution, I'm a geologist. Geology, as a geologist, I can tell you I've seen evolution in the fossil record, plants, insects, many forms of life, animals. It breaks down when it comes to humans. We emerged mysteriously 200,000 years ago with genetic mutations that are not the product of evolution, at least as we know it today, and that we haven't changed. If you look at our DNA compared to the fossilized DNA, being extracted from those remains, we haven't changed. That's not Darwin's idea of evolution. And it also shows, Steve, that it violates one of the fundamental rules of biology is that nature does not over-endow. That's the Alfred E. Wallace, a colleague of Darwin, stated nature does not over-endow. What that means is that a life form develops the capabilities it needs only in the moment of time that it needs to survive. All right. The problem is we emerged 200,000 years ago, light years, with capabilities light years beyond what we needed to survive only 200,000 years ago, including 76% larger neocortex, this expanded neural network, the ability to self-regulate. You are the only form of life with the ability to up-regulate DNA and genes consciously, at will, on demand, to self-regulate your immune system, your longevity enzymes. No other form of life can do this on demand, at will, when they choose to do it, and so much more. And that's what sets us apart from all other life. So when we begin to tell this story, Nassim and I wanted to share the new human story because the shift in the thinking of our connectedness, being part of the field, the ability to self-regulate, the understanding of the rules of the field, the holographic principle, the fractal principle, the entanglement principle, it empowers us in ways that have seemed like science fiction in the past, that were relegated to mystics and yogis and healers and curanderos and shamans. Now you can do many of these things in your living room if you understand and accept your relationship to your own body and to the world around us. And it's very, very different from what we've been taught in the past. Steve, this is so different than what I was taught as a geologist. But how can we solve the problems if we're not honest about the problems?
Yeah. Well,
that's the key.
I want to go to what you said. We were not taught that in the classroom. So, and one of the things you've emphasized is this science is forbidden. You came back to forbidden in the classroom. Why is this science forbidden in the classroom?
You know, it's so deeply forbidden that in the 21st century in the United States of America, some of the books that describe what we're talking about are actually banned from university libraries. They're banned from the classroom. They are not allowed on campus. So to answer the question, the reason this information is forbidden is because it forever changes the way that we have been taught to think. It threatens a standard model, a standard story. Entire corporations, entire industries are based upon the old story. So there are religious reasons not to accept the new discoveries. Certainly there are corporations that don't want. The pharmaceutical industry would certainly prefer that we have exterior chemical solutions than the chemistry that we create within our bodies through thought, feeling, emotion, and belief. Certainly economics. I have friends my age who have been in the university for 40 to 45 years teaching. And I've asked them the question, Steve, why don't you share with your young people what you and I are talking about right now? Why don't you share? And I'm not saying don't throw out Darwin, don't throw out the ideas. Honor our young people by giving them everything. Give them Darwin's theories. Give them all the old ideas and give them the new information. Give them the new DNA. Let them see the genetics so they can know for themselves. And I asked my professor friends that, and they say it's too much for them to change. They feel that it will invalidate their 40-year career as a teacher. And what I say is just the opposite, because science is made to be constantly updated. As new information comes along, it would show the relevance of science to your students. But even more than that, and I've seen this in my audiences, if you have a group of young people and you look them in the eye and you say, you know what, young people, we've been around for a while. We got this all figured out. All you have to do is memorize everything in this book. You're good to go. Not much fun in that. But if you say to a young, and I've seen this, if you say to a young person, there's a mystery. The truth is, we do not know where we came from. We don't know how we got here. We don't know how this universe began. We don't know these things. The young people's eyes will light up and they'll say, maybe I can be the one to figure that out. And then that's how you light up the soul of a young person, by inspiring them with a reason to think that they can contribute and solve these deep mysteries. So for me, nothing could be more exciting. But this is why it's such a pivotal time, Steve, because the world is changing, demanding new solutions, and the way we've been taught to think is not enough. It's failing when it comes to those solutions, whether we're talking about energy or climate change or healing or the immune system, all these things. But the new discoveries are now picking up where those old discoveries left off. So I prefer to think of it in a holistic way, that we are on a learning curve. So I don't think it's healthy to judge the past. There are reasons for what we've done, but we have to say the past worked well enough to get us where we are because we're here. We're here. So the past has served us. And now that we have new discoveries and new information, we can let that go gracefully and embrace the portions or in whole, whatever those new discoveries are leading us to. And that's why I'm excited to work with Nassim, because we both have crossed the traditional boundaries that have separated the sciences in the past. Both of us, fortunately, are not subject to a lot of peer pressure. We're not easily swayed by those who are not thinking the way that we're thinking. Well, I like to say that we have a strong soul compass. We love this world. We love the people of this world. And we both see a potential to free humankind from so much suffering. You know, and I think we were just talking about this. There's a lot of hurt in the world today from misunderstandings, a lot of it. That hurt, if you don't have the tools to deal with that hurt, it's expressed as fear. And that often comes out as hate. And you and I know there's a lot of hate in the world right now. One of the most powerful, healing, unified things that we can do is to share the deep truth of who we are in this world and what we know about ourselves and our relationship to one another. What a powerful, powerful way to bring us together at just the time, without judging the past, just the time when we need it for ourselves and for the next generation. That's why I'm so excited to share this, Steve. So again, a long answer to a short question,
Wow.
but I wanted to say that.
No, thank you for just unpacking, for putting sharing so much information that covers so much ground in so little time. So let's unveil this collaboration. We've been bringing up Nassim Haramein. I think people know that he's been working on research that is astounding research. Yeah. And together you all have collaborated on a lot of this, including this whole extraterrestrial thing.
The archaeological evidence.
Right, the archaeological evidence. So, and so we decided that we're going to take the deeper dive here with this because we couldn't possibly, inside of a couple of 60-minute programs, really get into this fully to empower people and to step out and create this whole new world that we've all dreamed about and envisioned, but it hasn't manifested yet. So we decided to create a new masterclass. Right, let's unveil that now. And of course, it's called Forbidden Science, the secret of our past, the promise of our future.
And I believe that's precisely what this is. It is forbidden in many advanced learning institutions. So it's true, it's very honest to say forbidden science. We're talking about forbidden biology, forbidden geology, forbidden cosmology, forbidden archaeology. The secret of our past, I chose that title, Steve. You and I worked on this together because what we're saying has been embraced almost universally by ancient and indigenous traditions for thousands of years. Not the science with the equations, but the principles and the philosophy that we are unified and connected. Not one indigenous condition or tradition that I've ever studied, not one has ever said to us that we're the product of a random process. Everyone, independently, crossing thousands of years of time, have all told a very similar story, that we are deeply connected to a greater cosmological family. And this is the legacy of our past, and it's the heritage that we have to build upon for our future if we're willing to accept ourselves. And what this comes down to, the deep question, do we love ourselves enough to accept what the discoveries reveal about what it means to be fully human? Do we love ourselves enough to live our lives in a way, to nourish our bodies and care for one another in a way that enables us to fulfill this potential? And you and I are answering this question, but how can you answer if you don't know? So we have a passion to share this because when Nassim says this beautifully, he feels a responsibility to share what he's found. I have just a heartfelt desire. I can't imagine leaving this world and not sharing what it is that we found. So can I talk about this course a little bit? Are you okay?
Absolutely. Let me just say one thing real quick, just so I want to make sure people catch this, that in the next 24 hours, if you register for this masterclass, Forbidden Science Masterclass, then you will be invited to a live program that Gregg and I are going to be doing that launches this whole new masterclass in a few weeks. So, want to just invite you to look at the program page, spend some quality time. There's a lot here. We're just covering a thumbnail sketch here of this program. So, I invite you to come back, spend quality time with it, and if you like the program, there's a guarantee period. Register so you can join us for this live kickoff that is going to be a blast. And of course, then you're going to be part of a program with Nassim Harriman, Gregg Braden. All of us in Humanities team are going through together. It's an astonishing program. So let me come back to you. I know you wanted to talk a little bit about the program.
Well, first of all, I want to say we chose to make this into a course so that we could first break it down into accessible modules. And it was a really good opportunity, an exercise for Nassim and I to take our thoughts and to organize them into what we felt was really important. And with each module to flesh out a piece of the new discoveries and then follow that with a technique or an invitation for you to really be honest with yourself about how what you have just heard changes your life, or does it change your life, or how you can embrace it in your life in a really healthy way. So there are 16 total modules. The first and the last he and I did together. And the remaining we split. And I begin by sharing the discoveries of the field that we are part of. Remember, the field's not out there. We are the field. And as we understand the principles of that field, we are understanding the keys to our potential. So I spend some time talking about entanglement. What is it? How do we know it happened? What are the experiments that really show that the universe is entangled? What does it mean for a prayer? What does it mean for an affirmation in your life? What does it mean when you want to send good vibes and healing to someone else on the other side of the planet? How do those good vibes get on the other side of the planet? Or do they have to get there? It's a trick question. And I'll give you the answer right now. They're already there. And in the module, you'll see why they're already there. That's one principle of entanglement. The holographic principle we've already spoken about. The principle of fractals is, you rarely hear about fractals as it relates to time. But I want you to know that you live fractal patterns in every one of your relationships, marriages, divorces, success, failure, hurt, healing, forgiveness. Every one of those experiences, at some point in your life, you planted a seed of an experience that set into motion a ripple through space-time that follows very specific patterns that can be calculated and predicted. And I've created a calculator for you that will help you at this module, at the end of this module, to actually understand the patterns in your life. And if they're good patterns, no problem. If they're not, and you want to change them, helps to understand how to go about making those changes. So this is some of the practical application. I talk about the new discoveries of the human body as soft technology. We're not computer chips and wires and chemicals. You and I are neurons and cell membranes with ion potentials moving across those cell walls, crystalline bone, and we self-regulate the 0.7 volts, 0.07 volts of electrical potential in every one of your 50 trillion cells, 3.5 trillion volts of electrical potential. You self-regulate through thought, feeling, emotion, and belief, focus, direction in ways that you and I wish somebody had told me this stuff when I was a kid. And then I have very special modules on the forbidden cosmology, because biology is the result of the cosmology. Whatever happened in the cosmos precedes what happened to us in life. So I've got a very special section on forbidden biology that shows we're not the product of evolution. And I went into some detail on this one, Steve. I didn't want to get really technical. It's one thing to say there were mutations, but I wanted, and especially our science people, we have some amazing healers and scientists that take these courses. I wanted you to see why the chromosome fusion for chromosome number 2, and the genes that were added and deleted to stabilize that fusion, why they could not have happened naturally through an evolutionary process, and that they're not the only one. But I want you to see that. This is where the forbidden biology comes in, and then the forbidden cosmology that ultimately leads us to a conversation of the archaeological discoveries that were recorded by humans like you and me. Something happened in our past that was so important. They took the time and recorded these events on thousands of tablets, over 3,000 that we know so far, scanning multiple countries, multiple geographies, multiple cultures, but they had very similar experiences. Why would they have taken the time to share that with us? What they're depicting is our relationship to a cosmic family, possibly in terms of DNA and birth. There are birthing scenes of hybrid relationships. And Steve, one of the most important things to me is there is a script that is on these tablets. It's never been translated. The dating of these tablets predates civilization as we know it. And one of the mysteries has been we don't really know where alphabets came from. We have theories of how they evolved. We don't know where that first one came from. If this script is what we think it is, and we're in the process of translating it right now, it predates all cuneiform, Phoenician, Egyptian hieroglyphs, any of those things. It may be that we now have a proto-language that can help us to understand what it is that's being depicted on these tablets. And it all comes together. Any one in of itself, isolated, is interesting. When you put them all together, they begin to tell a story. And I think we owe it to ourselves to embrace the potential that story is telling us and what it means in our lives, and also to be honest with ourselves. Open minds, not gaping minds, but open minds saying that maybe, just maybe, there's more to our story than we've been led to believe. Maybe there's more to us than we were led to believe when we were young, and help us break through the limitations and the barriers to become the best versions of ourselves. And, you know, if we can accomplish even a piece of that together, I think our world is worth the time to do that, Steve.
Thank you, Gregg. Now let's go take a look at Nassim's modules. Module 9, Space is Not Empty, Planck Plasma and Ancient Knowledge. Module 10, Rethinking Black Holes, the Source of Creation. Module 11, Protons Don't Lie, Revealing the Cosmic Constants. Module 12, Size Doesn't Matter, Scaling the Constants from Particle to Universe. Module 13, Awakening Deep Intuition. Module 14, The Resonance Key, the Secret to Engineering the Vacuum. Module 15, A Shift in Thinking, Applying Resonance in Everyday Life. And Module 16 with Gregg Braden and Nassim Haramein, Ancient Artifacts, the Missing Link in Our Ancient Story. This discusses archaeology and an excavation in Mesoamerica yielding mind-blowing results.
So thank you and Humanity's team for the opportunity to nudge my dear, dear friend Nassim, my 30-year colleague, to nudge us into the place and give us a reason to put this together and to coalesce it in the way that we have so that we can offer this as modules that people can see again and again. There's so much. You'll go back and you'll want to see some of these modules, especially Nassim's cosmological explanations. How long can people have access to the modules?
Yeah, for a lifetime.
Okay, there you go. There you go.
And you will want to come back, over a lifetime. And the research is mind-blowing. Some of the things that they're going to show during the program is mind-blowing. As Gregg mentions, this is revealed in 16 modules. So it took quite a bit of time to distill this down into 16 clean modules so that it's not a fire hose. And there was so much coming at you that you just drop a lot of important information. Now, I also want to bring in the live mentoring because our viewers have shared, they love the live mentoring. Gregg does 2 live 60-minute mentoring programs. And then Nassim does 2 live 60-minute mentoring programs. You might want to say a word about these because I know the interaction is so substantial that at the end of an hour, you're like, hey, sometimes let me stick around for another 10 minutes.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. The technology has reached the point where we can interact with you interactively without being in a conference room together. And that's, I'm deeply grateful for that technology. The mentoring for me often is where the really juicy stuff happens, because it's an opportunity for you to ask questions. And what happens is when you see the information that we're sharing, it will trigger within you the questions. If this is true, then what does it mean for this? Or if this is happening now, what does it mean for my past? Or how? And that tells us that what we're sharing with you is meaningful, that it has application in your life. And often it will open the door between me and the person that asked the question, but the whole mentoring group benefits. It'll open the door to a deeper conversation about something that either I assumed was already common knowledge, or something that I just maybe didn't put into the program in the interest of time. But now, as the audience, you're telling me it was important, and it's the opportunity to ask. So it's very informal. We should call it Gregg Braden Unplugged, Nassim Unplugged, and Steve moderates. And you've done a lot of this. You do it very well, and it's a way really for us to honor you, because we would never want to dump this information on you and not give you a way to ask questions or interact with us in some way.
Now, let's review all of what you get with Forbidden Science when you register. First, this special limited time bonus. If you register in the next 24 hours, you will be invited to a virtual fireside chat just before the program starts with Gregg, Nassim, and me. You don't want to miss it. You also get all of these items: 7 video modules with Gregg Braden, 7 video modules with Nassim Harriman, 2 video modules with Gregg and Nassim together, the first module, module 1, and the last module, module 16. For the English version, 16 MP3 audios of the video modules. Also for the English version, 4 group mentoring sessions, 2 with Gregg and 2 with Nassim, and exclusive membership in our private Facebook community and Conscious Social Network. And as you can see, you get a nice discount on this program during our campaign. When you buy Forbidden Science as part of Humanity Stream Plus, you unlock hundreds of other programs that come with it. This is actually only a small sampling. And with Humanity Stream Plus, you gain access to all these other things as well. Now, as you can see, you have 2 options when you purchase. Forbidden Science is a standalone program with a nice discount, and Forbidden Science is part of Humanity Stream Plus, and you get hundreds of other programs for only a little more. Be sure to choose the option that works best for you.
Now, as we come to the end of our program here, Gregg, I want to just invite you. Are there things you'd like to leave with viewers as we come to a close? And I'm going to be coming back live on the program here to get your comments and questions. But
Sure.
Yeah, are there things you'd like to share as we wrap this up, Gregg?
Well, first, what I'd like to do is thank you for clicking the button that's bringing this together right now, because that certainly is the first step. It takes trust. And so I want you to know I appreciate your trust, your care, and your support for me and Nassim all these years. We've covered so much information, and I know everyone learns differently. I know for some people it can seem like a lot. Some of it may seem technical. I want you to know that we've worked to share the science as principles, but not necessarily the so deeply technical that it's not meaningful in your life. We want enough so that you know there's something real to give your left brain the opportunity to latch onto. And what's so interesting, Steve, is when the left brain sees a reason to change the way it thinks, it lets go and allows the right brain and the heart to now become immersed in the information. When that doesn't happen, what will often happen, if we didn't address your left brain, if we just came in and said, hey, you're the product of a strange mutation 200,000 years ago, your left brain would be saying, how do you know? Prove it to me. Who told you this? We've heard something. And so it's a way to honor the way that we know that you learn. So I deeply appreciate the opportunity to share these new discoveries, different ways of thinking, and just the opportunity to share this journey, because we're all in this together. We are all in this together. We're learning to become the best versions of ourselves, create the best world possible for ourselves and our children. And to the degree that we can do that together, I think that is worth putting our time and energy to, and I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity. So thank you, Steve.
Yeah, well, Ben, as you know, this is a total privilege and pleasure for me and Humanities Team to be partnering with you and Nassim Harriman, just, totally esteemed leaders who we look up to. By the way, stay tuned for announcements on Gregg Braden, because we're doing some really cool stuff with Gregg here.
I'm going to stay tuned for that announcement. I'll find out what it is. But I also just want to say we've never done this before. This is a first for Humanities Team for us to do a course in this way. It's the first time Nassim and I have worked publicly on film like this to marry these new discoveries into the continuity of a really beautiful and powerful and uplifting and empowering story. So thank you for the opportunity of sharing that as well.
Yeah, join Gregg Braden, Nassim Harriman, all of Humanities Team. We're all going to be going through together where this program launches in a few short weeks. So join us.
Thank you.
Thank you.